Well, hello everyone. I do believe we are live on a Friday night. I don't have whiskey in my hand, although I would like one. I would not mind grabbing a little. In fact, I might do that. We'll see. It's been another kind of a long week. Busy at work. A lot of like 4-hour meetings, that kind of stuff. We're starting to spin up the next cohort of students coming in a couple of weeks, and just been very busy with that. Every time we get like a month or two between each cohort of students, and I always think we'll be more relaxed, but there's always more stuff to do than I think there will. Saturday night, that's right, not Friday. Wow, it's that kind of week. Um, oh boy, maybe we'll see. But yes, it's been quite a week. But that's okay. I'm doing okay now. All nice and sort of things are back in the groove. Been doing a lot of travel for work as well. Driving about 2 hours from here to different work thing. But that's just kind of a thing. And before we get started, actually, I wanted to bring up something and ask you all something about the news tonight, because there's a news item I'm thinking of covering, but I'm not sure whether I should. And I'd love to hear your all's opinion on this. Amongst the other news stories, the Japanese Supreme Court ruled this week around CGI renditions of, let's just say, children who are not wearing any clothing, and just that, nothing going on in the pictures beyond that. But it kind of gets to to a lot of stuff around like Japanese laws around what is porn and what isn't and all that kind of stuff, which is I think very interesting. Um, it's not. I will cover interspecies reviewers in this, but I'm going to kind of gloss over all that stuff. But that I think it is interesting because it does get to sort of laws and definitions around things. But what do you all think? How would you vote on either including that or not including that in there? Yeah, YouTube's definitely more concerned about those things these days. I'm kind of tempted to do like a separate video on it, maybe. Um, I don't know, not do it as part of the main news stuff. Um, yeah, there'll be no images. There will be no images at all whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. Definitely. Yeah, I ain't touching that. Um, okay, sounds like the chat room is kind of split. So I think what I'll do is I won't cover it as part of the main news, but I'll talk about it on here after the news is done and maybe post that as a separate thing. We'll see. Um, yeah, potential views around that. And that would also give me the advantage to kind of go more in depth on the topic, so to speak. Yeah. And kind of talk about all the different elements of that story. I think would make sense. Yeah, news is news even if it's uncomfortable, but this is I think an aspect of the news that well, the reason I'm uncertain is because it's not really about actually that this is a good point. It's not really about anime. You know, it's very very anime adjacent, if you will. There we go. So yeah, so I think I'll keep it out of the main news broadcast because just it's so tangential to actual anime news. But we'll talk about it on here afterwards. Anyway, how are you all doing? What kind of anime are you watching? What kind of manga are you reading? We had a great discussion briefly this morning around the Nausicaa manga and the fact that it was the people don't seem to talk about the Nausicaa manga much. Um, Manga definitely doesn't get much love on the YouTube, it seems. But yeah, any particular anime? I'm caught up on 22/7 and interspecies reviewers, although it's that's not going to be as easy to find now, based on what folks are watching, or based on a news story of this week. Dorohedoro, Parasite, cool. Carve an MMO Junkie, I loved that series. Loved that series. Really fun. Hit a nice little middle ground of sort of romantic comedy stuff. Told about Hanako song. Yeah, I was fascinated by the art style of Hanako. Very distinctive style, very different style, which is cool. I always love it when anime does something different. Mm. FYI, YouTube is now complaining about my connection, so you may see some choppiness here over the next while. Space Patrol Luluco, yep, definitely has that style. Something else I have here, which I'm not sure if I'm going to dive into soon. I have some bread. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, I baked this loaf of bread that did not quite turn out the way I expected it to. And I might try cutting into it tonight. This is kind of nuts. But apparently not enough yeast. And this is made entirely with a local flour. Basically, there's a mill near here that stone grinds flour, and there's local farm that provides it wheat, and they ground up some flour, and I tried baking this loaf of bread. Came out fine, like it looks good, but it didn't puff up at all. So not enough yeast clearly, and I think just using just pure. So the actual flour you get from the store has various things added to it, various like leavenings and such. Not quite leavenings, but various things to basically make it work better. And it's been processed very particular ways. So just baking straight with a traditional flour doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do. So I've tried something differently, and I've got a big. So I basically made bread with just some of this flour in it. It puffed up and it's all fine. So, one of those things. You guys want me to cut into it? Want me to see how it is? Let's cut into it, see how it is, before we go any further. See if we can't do a quick. Let's look at it. Oh, this camera's a little hot. Feeling hot, and I am gonna cut directly on the my surface here. Actually, let me get a breadboard. Okay. Bread knife. Let's see what we get. Ooh. Pretty serious stuff. So there's the crumb. Sort of a medium crumb, relatively loose, but not too bad. I think this will toast up extremely well. I might end up making, you know what? This looks to me like what do you call these when you toast these up and dip them in chocolate? Yeah, the crust is pretty hard, but inside it's pretty soft. I put it like a banana bread-esque sort of level, and I'm just going to use the bread knife for the butter, which I know I'm an animal, but just for tonight, let's see what we get. Not gonna taste like banana bread, I hope that. So let's just slather some good old butter on this. See what we get. Wow. There's a lot of flavor to that. There's a depth to that I did not expect. You know how like a sourdough or a rye bread will have just a lot more flavor than a plain white bread? This is just a plain loaf with just this flour. It doesn't taste like rye or sourdough, but it has depth and oh, this is good. All right, so I have another 28 slices to come out of this loaf, but they're small. That's no bread, it's a space station. Cool. Good experiment. I'm actually going to leave some of this here and move this out of the way. So the reason I made this, one of the reasons, is that our hobby hopper for February is going to be making comfort food. So baking bread and mac and cheese and baking cookies and all those classic comfort food things. That'll be our plan for February, and I'm hoping folks will kind of figure out how to nail down some classic comfort foods, maybe from their childhood, and that'll be the plan. Yeah, this is the problem with watching streamers who eat. So good. I'm kidding. So I'll be making some videos on baking bread and bacon. Yep, grilled cheese. Grilled cheese, a great example. I got a few things in the hopper, if you will, for that. Interesting. And I'm hoping we'll see some variety there. Obviously, different cultures have different comfort foods. Maybe we'll get some different experimentations and things that I would not consider comfort food because I just didn't grow up with it. I think that'd be fun. Bacon and grilled cheese. My goodness. Jay, you are living life on the edge, and I love that edge. I am all for that edge. Food service. There we go. I'm also a big fan of learning to make just sort of simple versions of foods. I may have mentioned this in the past. Of learning a very basic like bread recipe or cookie recipe. That's what I meant to say. And then evolve from there. Grits crackling. Someone's from the South. I'm just guessing. How do I clear that? It's weird. It's weird. Did y'all hear that? There we go, and we'll see how well this works. I may need to recenter a little bit so you all see what you're supposed to see. There we go, that seems a bit right. Although his head's kind of down. There we are. There we go. Hey everyone. Let's see how this goes. I don't have a script this time, so I'm just going to go for it. Wonder if I can pull this down. We'll see. Okay. And welcome back to the latest anime news for the week ending February 1st, 2020. Let's get started with news about Weathering With You, which has made a total of $6.5 million in North America, which is pretty darn cool. It came out January 15th, about 2 weeks ago. And initially ranked number 2 in theaters, but then dropped down to 12, 13, 14, sort of that level. But Friday to Monday made $2.2 million, which was more than what was expected. They thought it'd only get $2.0 million. And earned a total of $5.2 million in its first 6 days. That's pretty darn good. Can't complain about that. It is the highest grossing release from GKIDS. And it hit that in its first 2 days, which topped Mary and the Witch's Flower, which made $2.4 million. And it's also already earned more than Your Name in North America, so that's pretty darn cool. Moving along, Funimation has announced they are dropping their stream of interspecies reviewers. This is a very, very adult anime that Funimation was streaming. And I don't honestly know quite why they were streaming it, because it's not quite, totally adults only, but it's definitely an anime for adults. And they announced on Friday that they are not going to be streaming it anymore. The official statement was, quote, "After careful consideration, we determined that this series falls outside of our standards. We have the utmost respect for our creators, so rather than substantially alter the content, we felt taking it down was the most respectful choice," end quote. The question has to be asked, though. They've been doing it for 3 episodes. How could they not know that it fell outside their standards? I don't know. Who knows? But if you're looking for interspecies reviewers, you'll have to go somewhere other than Funimation for now. Meanwhile, good news for digital manga sales, up 29% last year. Now, the overall publishing market only increased 0.2% for the year, earning about $14 billion US. But this is the first increase since 2014 for the overall publishing market. Print was down 4.3%, with the digital market up 23.9%. So things are definitely going well. Print sales fell for the 15th straight year last year, but print manga sales did rise in 2019, bolstered by major publishers raising prices starting back in summer 18, and some breakout hits like Demon Slayer. So good news in general for manga sales, at least if you're on the digital side. Speaking of good news for manga, there was a, quote, multiple urgent reprint situation, end quote, with Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken after the introduction of the anime. The anime apparently drove a bunch of sales of the manga, which is now at over 500,000 copies in print. Not much news beyond that. The anime premiered on NHK General back in January 5th, and it's streaming now on Crunchyroll, 12 episodes total. So good to see anime pushing sales over in Japan, and hopefully it'll push more sales of the anime, and it'll be a nice whole cycle, and all of that will work. We'll see. Speaking of manga, Dark Horse let us know this week that Hellsing is coming to a hardcover edition. Pretty exciting. This will be a 3-volume edition eventually, in an embossed casing with sewn binding and a ribbon marker. Pretty darn cool. It'll come out July 14th, although you can pre-order it and get it on Dark Horse's website July 1st. And this will be the first release of the manga in the original 7x10 serialized format. That's pretty darn exciting. That looks pretty cool over there. I don't know. I kind of want it now. Total of 3 volumes, as I said. The first volume will be 696 pages and will compile the manga's first 4 original volumes. It's going to be a big one. And if you're just Hellsing, I think this will be the one for you. Moving on, kind of a lighter bit of news, and something I wouldn't normally cover, but I just loved this bit of information. There was news released this week about the upcoming Shirobako film. And this was based on the anime series about a couple of people all at an anime studio all making an anime series. And so what's really interesting is how the anime film is actually going to be about them making an anime film. That's right. This is going to be an anime movie about a bunch of people making an anime movie. How's that for meta? Pretty darn cool. Moving on to some news about the upcoming Ghost in the Shell Netflix series that is going to be all CGI. We have news now on who will be involved, directed by both Kenji Kamiyama and Shinji Aramaki. That's pretty major. Speaking of major, all of the classic Japanese voice actors will be back. Atsuko Tanaka, Akio Otsuka, Koichi Yamadera, all the rest, with Osamu Saka returning as Aramaki. Nobuko Toda and Kazuma Jinnochi will be doing the music. No Yoko Kanno this time, unfortunately. Toda did the music for Sweetness and Lightning and The Case Files of Jeweler Richard, while Jinnochi worked on Buso Shinki. Toda is also known for composing music for Metal Gear Solid, so that's probably why he's involved. And both of them worked on the soundtracks for Halo 4 and Halo 5. Pretty darn cool. So we'll see where it goes. There is a trailer up on YouTube now if you are curious what that's going to look like. Another fun one. Let's move on to a fun story. The Love Live Series 9th Anniversary Love Live Fest will be over in the U.S. in February 25th. This will be a rebroadcast of the January 18th event at the Saitama Super Arena, which brought together the idol groups Accords, Saint Snow, and Nijigasaki Academy's Idol Appreciation Club. And this will mark the reunion of the various Love Live members after about 3 years and 9 months. This is pretty cool. We also know that there is going to be a new TV anime coming. Tagline being, "The story of my dreams coming true. Hello, Love Live." So we'll see where that goes, but good news for all of you Love Live fans. You may be able to see all the characters on the big screen. Speaking of idols, Seiji Mitsushima will be directing a new anime series called D4DJ. Mitsushima, known as particularly as a director of Full Metal Alchemist and Mobile Suit Gundam 00, so pretty big heavy hitter there. This is going to be clearly some kind of idol series. I mean, look at these girls. Clearly, some kind of idol thing going on here, and I believe it is DJ related. I'm just guessing that here. I don't know. But Seiji Mitsushima being brought in for this is a pretty big deal. So here's hoping it works out for him. And finally, interesting story here about a manga called The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese. This was originally a manga based on the story of two guys who, let's just say, get together, and originally included some pretty adult content. But now that there is a movie coming out, live action movie, the mangaka has announced that she is going to be re-editing and redrawing the manga and re-releasing the edited version without that content in it. The complexity being that it's just going to be re-released with the same covers and everything else. So there'll be no indication of whether you're getting the original version or the one changed by the mangaka. The quote from Mizushiro, Setona didn't quite get that right. Setona Mizushiro, there we go. She said, "In the 16 years that have passed since the original release, various circumstances have changed. The situation also changed a lot due to the film production. And basically because the film might be seen by a lot of younger viewers, she's a little worried what they might find in the manga if they go back to that. So there'll be an edited version out there, and that's going to be interesting to see what that does to sales and to the fan base. Who knows? But good luck to them. Good luck to the popularity of Cornered Mouse in theaters after that releases, and we'll see where that goes. But that's it for the news for this week. Thank you all so much for watching. See you next week. Just checking on comments. Sorry. Yeah, the avatar just kind of does this the whole time. You can actually do like basically this. There's like three different arm animations, and he's sort of doing this, or he's like doing this, or he's doing like this. And they're a little more natural, but it looks kind of weird after a while. So I'm kind of left with either this or like a lot of movement that looks false after a while. So only so much I can do. Yeah, I actually, so now that the news is over, I can talk about this. The on Interspecies Reviewers, I watched up to episode 3, and because I was curious about it, because as JJ says, they episode 3 is very suggestive, but they black out certain scenes and just include the audio. You can go and get the uncensored version, which leaves all that stuff in, and none of the big censor stuff is in there. It's still not like HH, right? Like there's no there's none of the various anatomy that would be in an H. But it does kind of make a little more sense in terms of what you're seeing on screen. I actually kind of found that better. I found that easier to follow in terms of what was going on screen. I do think that probably episode 3 was a high watermark, and they're like, "Ooh, this gets pretty suggestive," and they're like, maybe this is not a good idea. I like really enjoyed Interspecies Reviewers. I thought it was a fun, goofy, concept, and it treats its concept very lightly. Has a lot of fun with it, and it's just sort of a it's a sex comedy, right? It's like any of the various R-rated sex comedies over in America, but with that whole anime twist and the whole fantasy twist. So I liked it in that sense, but I can totally see, and I mentioned this on Twitter. I don't know why Funimation licensed it to begin with. It's just not a good fit for their brand. It's not a good fit for their website. It just doesn't really make sense for Funimation, I don't think. And so I do think it's possible that they got it as some kind of package, or that Sony said, "Here's a bunch of anime made by like our subsidiaries," and Funimation said, "Okay, we'll do what we can." By the way, the dub of Interspecies Reviewers is fantastic. So they basically just said, "Okay, we're not gonna stream that anymore." I suspect there will be a release. Like they'll drop it on Blu-ray at some point. But let's be honest, that does not belong next to Black Clover, right? It's not really not a good idea for Funimation. Yes, Morph. So the concept, for those not familiar, Interspecies Reviewers is set in a fantasy world where the main characters go to a red light district every night, and spend the night with various fantasy girls. And they end up setting up a service where they, after their various escapades, they write up little reviews of what it was like with different races. And again, it's very lighthearted, it's very goofy, it's very funny. It's kind of playing off the different tropes of different, different classic fantasy species that, a snake woman would kind of wrap her. Actually, there was like an octopus woman, and she would wrap herself around you, and you'd feel strangled, that kind of stuff. Well, Dan, they said, they're not streaming it because they felt it wasn't right for them, and they didn't want to edit it. So like, let's just put it down. Yeah. I don't see how it's misogynistic per se. Yeah, Funimation has no age restriction on its website. So I think that's part of the problem, is that they have no way of doing it. And even if they did, like, it would just be, "Are you 18?" Which doesn't really prevent anyone young from getting into it. But yeah, it's no, like you, JJ. It's goofy. It's a ridiculous premise. Um, but yeah, it's playing around with tropes basically. So yeah, it's kind of weird. There were a lot of weird reactions on Twitter when they came out. Like, why would you drop this? It's like, look at it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's been fan sub. You can easily find it on the various fan sub sites and such. It's not hard to find in that way. Um, and like I said, I'm sure it'll get a physical release at some point. It's just not really it's not really good for a website like Funimation, where just everything's all in one place and you can scroll from kid stuff to this, and it's like, nah, a little weird. And I do wonder, maybe episode 4 will have something that's kind of like It didn't help that episode 3, and I'll get out this in a second. Episode 3 has the characters all take gender swap potions, and then experience that side of things, which is that's that gets into some very delicate territory these days. What time was I running? I do not know. I don't think it was airing on television. I think it was just internet release, probably. Actually, no. I mean, it's half hour, so there probably is some Japanese release date, but it's probably on some, on a cable channel somewhere. Hey, gosh, what are the anime airing right now that have their letter I? Winter 2020 anime. Let's see here. Yeah, so you'd get, I guess, ID Invaded, and then Interspecies Reviewers. Actually, no, you get Infinite Dendrogram, and then Interspecies Reviewers, which would be definitely a bit of a whiplash there. Kind of funny. Hey, Akko. Good to see you. Are good openings and endings important to help an anime story by drawing people in? So a lot of different things to unpack there. I do certainly think that openings and endings do get people excited. I think that openings and endings have become kind of their own thing, where people are like fans of OPs and EDs. They're open. They're they get into the artists and so forth. And there's certainly a something to be said for the mood you can get in when you hear an opening credits sequence that just gets your heart pumping or gets you excited. I don't know where I read this, but apparently the staff behind Serial Experiments Lain said that they chose the opening and ending very deliberately. That the opening, because of how it starts and so forth, is meant to wake you up. Backpedaling, Lain aired like really late at night. It was one of those late night anime, and so they wanted an opening that would kind of wake you up and kind of surprise you, and then the ending is meant to put you back to sleep because it's this very quiet, relaxed thing. So, ideally that will help. Again, setting a mood. I think Bebop is a good example of where that ending theme very much sets a particular tone for the series. But in general, you have that opening. That opening really gets you prepped for the show. The problem is, in my opinion, a lot of openings just don't really match the show very well, which is a detriment. So it helps sometimes. And I agree, Dayon. Gundam 00's pretty much, actually, I would say all of their opening credit sequences really got me pumped for the show. They really, got me in. Gundam had sort of I want to say a checkered history with its opening theme songs in terms of some of them I really love, and others I'm just like, it's there. It's fine. But it really depends. Yeah, Lane's got a good soundtrack. Whatever good means. But I do, I have all of Lane's music. I'm kind of a Lane person. You might have noticed this. Yuaso pays a lot of attention to openings. So does the guy who did Utena. Why am I forgetting his name? Kunihiko Ikuhara, right, of course. Ikuhara's opening and endings will definitely catch your attention. Ohiageru, Ohiageru, Gandamu, Kimio. Yeah, that's okay. One of the endings of Double O just destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me. And you probably all know what I'm talking about. If you've seen Double O, there's an ending that's boy. Um, that makes sense. Seek and So, thanks. D4DJ is like Bang Dream. Yep, makes sense. I wonder if it's like related. I wonder if it's like the same universe or something. Um, yeah, Furry Curry, definitely. Big deal. Um, so yeah, and that's the hard thing is if people talk about great openings, um, but they forget all of the openings that just kind of are there, or that disappeared into the background. People just kind of don't really remember because that's what happens with openings you don't remember. So it's interesting to me though how much openings can open into this whole world of people who collect OPs, and just have big collections and like YouTube playlists of OPs for shows they've never even seen, because they just find that format really fascinating. This minute and a half basically music video for an anime series, especially when, and I've mentioned this in the past, usually there is a music label that's investing in the anime series and that helps, and they basically direct what the opening and ending song is going to be based on their library. So it's sort of an external choice a lot of the time. And so seeing how the anime staff is able to work that in, and then usually the opening and ending. I don't know, if you guys know this. Often the opening and ending isn't actually done like at the studio. They will find somebody to do like the opening or the ending, and it might be done by a different studio or by a particular person they'll hand it off to. So I know Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex's season 2 opening was done by basically one guy who just animated all of it. They handed it off to him for like 8 months or something, and he just did that. I was made to hit in America. Yeah, Eva, like you say, love it or hate it. You hear Cruel Angel's Thesis, and you know what you're getting into, right? That song does not really get old in that way. It is classic. It's become a classic. And I certainly have OPs and ends that I stumbled across for shows that I've never seen that I kept and are on my rotation. What was the one? Oh, Stelvia. The opening theme to Stelvia. I love that song. Never seen the show. Yeah, I mean, and granted, like the '80s, they were all very samey too. '80s openings tended to be pretty identical. They were just very '80s. Um, all right, guys, let's not rain on people's parade. I don't know if the '80s had more feeling. Um, a lot of that stuff was just churned out pop idol nonsense. Like I love the '80s, but I do not believe that the '80s were that the '80s music industry was somehow more pure or less profit driven than today. We're just more familiar with the process today. We're closer to it. We see the sausage being made, where that we didn't see that in the past. Yeah, there's a lot of '80s stuff that's just very. Um, look at Double Zeta's opening. That's ooh, that is a rough opening. Um, some of the other stuff. Yep, Stelvia of the Universe. That's what I'm talking about, JJ. Love that opening song. No idea about the show. When you bring up Macross, I mean, look at Macross 2, right? Like, everyone talks about how amazing Macross is, but nobody brings up Macross 2. And it's like, that's... Oof. Oof. We'll have to agree to disagree about that Akko 12. I'm not a fan of the openings of Double Zeta. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Macross 2 is a sequel nobody wanted. Nobody was happy with Macross 2, it seems. But it kind of caused Macross Plus to happen, so, everything works out. Yeah, if you go back and watch, like one of those YouTube videos, 100 opening credit sequences from the '80s, they will all tend to blend together. Yeah, Rock the Dragon, one of the greats, and the Canadian Dragon Ball Z theme, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z. Look that up on YouTube. The Canadian Dragon Ball Z theme is, oh, that's an experience. Favorite Gundam OP? I don't know that I have one because they're just so different. Just Communication is special to me because that was my first, really my first Gundam series. But Invoke from Seed was just really fit that show so well. Several of the openings from Double O, I just and that's also a combination of the. I would argue the Double O is a high watermark for opening theme music that felt like it really fit the show and felt getting me pumped for the show, and visuals accompanying that really introduced the series and introduced that part of what was going on in the plot arcs and so forth. Just a really great marriage in Double O in terms of Gundam. Da Vinci, I'm not aware of an anime canceled by Funimation. If you're talking about interspecies reviewers, yes, but that was not canceled. They simply removed it from their streaming on the site. Chucky Kanaka, one of the greatest writers in anime. Spin, did something happen? Last I heard, Kanaka is he's still working. He's still doing. In fact, he was credited on something in the last year or two, I think. Interspecies reviewers, they're not streaming it at all. No subs, no dubs. There may be a physical release at some point in the future, but that's all we know. He's doing live action stuff and writing books. Yeah, I think he worked on an OVA recently or something. I just saw his name attached to something or else. Yeah, Easy Breezy is good. But yeah, favorite Gundam. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not a fan of the Zeta openings personally. And it's tough because you'll get opening credit sequences to shows that you love, and so you love the opening credit sequence because you love the show, not necessarily because the song is a perfect fit. So 8th MS Team, I rock out to that song, and I really like the music. I really like the animation to it, but I don't know that I would love that song on its own. Right, I'm into it for my memories of 8th MS Team. I want to know. I thought Double O ended pretty strong. I was probably more into Double O in season 2 than season 1. I think season 2 was more uneven, but season 1 was kind of just all build up, and didn't really go anywhere. It went anywhere, went places in season 2, but season 1 was just kind of, eventually this will all pay off. Dual Parallel Trouble Adventure, love that. That boy, there's an opening theme for you. Dual, oh, that'll get you pumped. and juice all this stuff. Um, I don't follow Digibro Da Vinci. What crazy anime was that? Yeah, Duel. I might rewatch Duel one of these days. I love that show and I haven't seen it in a long time. So actually, Matt, if you look up Super Flat Monogram, that is a short film directed by Mamoru Hosoda in collaboration with Haruki Murakami, if I'm remembering that they're the same person. No, I'm not. Sorry, wrong thing. Um, I'm thinking Takashi Murakami. Durhei. You're right. I'm surprised that there's no Haruki Murakami anime. One of these days, I'm sure. But also, this stuff is so long and dense. I mean, kind of technically, sort of, in a sense, Habane Renmei. I mean, it was heavy. I mean, Renmei was heavily inspired by Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World, which I think that was a Murakami, right? Let me just check. Yes. So Renmei is kind of sort of a thing. Yeah, exactly, JJ. If they did Oda Cinnamon Nobunaga, they can do a Takashi Murakami thing. But again, I think he's tough, and you get that weird thing where you get sort of a beloved author who's considered to have a lot of to be kind of a big deal. People are thus a little more careful about adapting it, right? You get that kind of fear that you're gonna get it wrong. People are gonna scream and yell. So maybe folks are just like a little, I don't know. Is Attack on Titan a mecha? I don't think so. Yeah, Abe has said when he was doing Habane Renmei, he actually did that to begin with as just a manga to have ready for Comic-Cat, and he sat down and he said, I'm just going to just start drawing and see what comes out of it. And he just recently read Hardboiled Wonderland, so he took some imagery he'd been working on, just of girls with wings and halos, Charcoal Feather Federation, which had been a series of illustrations he'd done, and started working on that. And he basically kind of married the two, and told a story that was very much inspired by the plot and images of Hardboiled Wonderland, but in his own story. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Warren Gemini has a really, um, mm, really strong opening. Ah, that's a good idea, Patrick. Your wife might get into it for the dogs. In fact, that would be a good sort of list to come up with. Is anime you can get friends and family into anime with, because they feature something kind of adjacent to something that they like. Um, oh yeah, I agree, Morphball. There's definitely multiple influences on Habane Renmei, but Hardboiled is just kind of sort of in terms of the setting and the overall tone was kind of the where he was coming from, but other stuff too. Um, yeah, Tomino. Well, Dan, Tomino basically said he finds Attack on Titan ugly, um, and he just obviously the Titans are physically ugly, but he basically said he would not have made an anime series that looks like that. And I don't think he was trying to Attack on Titan. I think he was just saying, or denigrate it. He was just saying, his style and his approach to anime would be to make something that is not that physically repulsive, if you will, which is again a very intentional design choice on their part. But he's kind of saying that's not a real thing. My biggest pet peeve from the anime fan base. I am doing a panel on that in about a week. 13 biggest mistakes otaku make. And I will spoil I'll spoil one of them, at least, which is the idea that XYZ is going to kill anime. That something is going to, is a death knell for anime, and anime is doomed. I'm just really tired of hearing that. Yeah, I've done it a couple of times. It's a fun panel. I get to rant for 45 minutes about dumb fan theories, and by dumb I literally mean theories people clearly have not thought out. It's completely reactionary theories, and just ridiculous things people have said about things. I actually have a slide about all the things that were going to doom anime that I've actually seen people claim over time that this is going to destroy anime. It's like, nope. Yep, CG is one of them. CG is going to kill anime. Moe was going to kill anime. That's a big one. Pokemon was going to kill anime. Definitely. Let me see here. The move to shorter anime was going to kill anime. The fact that we're getting 13 episodes instead of 26 or 50, that's a death. My Hero Academia definitely kills anime. Remake of Golden Boy. Actually, that'll be interesting. We certainly have plenty of ecchi material these days, and I wonder how folks would take Golden Boy if you would go more, obviously not like explicit, but it'd be interesting to see if you would go more crass with Golden Boy, and obviously Golden Boy gets pretty pervy at times, but it kind of stops just short. So it'd be interesting to see somebody take that on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Shonen, Naruto. Naruto is going to destroy anime. Manga's more perverted. That believes me. Can the fan base be toxic? Absolutely. Any fan base can be toxic, and often is. And that's just kind of the thing. Yeah. The anime industry is done. It's like, well, look at the numbers. I'm not saying the anime industry is impervious to all damage and can't possibly suffer a major problem, but the indicators show that the anime industry is chugging along. Is my fan base toxic? Nah, I've got a great fan base. And also, like, I'm pretty proactive in terms of like finding comments on my YouTube videos that are like really bad and just deleting them. And I occasionally get trolls in here, and I just block them and kick them out. So that filters things out pretty well. Yeah, I mean, certainly independent projects are harder right now. That is the reality, but I think that's also just kind of the reality of the industry. Um, you know, We're doing the anime industry discussion this year. If you have any good news to report on the health of the industry, what anime industry discussion? Um, I, I, I'm not recalling that. Um, I stopped reading comments for a while just because I fell out of the habit, but I read them again now. I read them and often respond. I'll respond if I'm asked a question or if somebody has like wants a clarification or something. Cover the profits and loss over time. I know I've covered that like in the news in the past. Oh, do you mean like the panel I would do on how anime is made? That was not accepted this year, I don't think, at Star City. So I will not be doing that. That's right, the secret anime discussion. I have all sorts of secrets. There's actually got there's a comment in my in my work at work about these study groups that I sometimes launch with certain of the students, and like I tell folks at the beginning of the class, by the way, I occasionally will grab a couple of folks and form a little study group just to dive into some topics, and I don't have the capacity to do that for everybody. But I just kind of like to do that when I see folks who have some spare time and so forth. And there was a comment kind of complaining about Brent's secretive study groups. It's kind of like, it's not secret. It's just not, I just don't do it with everybody here because there's 50 of you. But oh well. That is very healthy, Matt. Um, you know, I usually like to split it up, so I'm watching some new anime and some old anime at any given time. I think that's helpful. You're welcome, Mozone. I'm glad you were involved in the secret discussions. Good. Very helpful. Will we ever get something like Lane or Texanalize ever again? Sure. Absolutely. Of course. Um, there's weird anime right now. I keep talking about 22/7. No one seems to be watching that show. That is a weird effing show. Um, and it's definitely this dramatic thriller thing using pop idols as its ingredients. I don't know that it is it's not like Lane, but also I mean like Boogie Pop, like Little Boogie Pop, like we got a Boogie Pop adaptation like last year. you know 22/7 is the anime series. I agree, Jay. Acceptance is the hardest thing for fans to do. We're obsessive, and we don't like to deal with the fact that we can't get everything. We can't have everything. It's true. Um, yeah. So imagine an idol series that is directed and structured like a horror series. So just like Lane is like a techno thriller, but plotted as a horror series. That's what 22/7 is. It's fascinating. Um, is anime good for your brain or harmful? Yes. So Spin, I teach programming. I teach at a software boot camp, software programming boot camp. So we spent about 4 months teaching folks how to code. Um, Biggest anime letdown? I don't know. I think it's usually anime that people like really hyped up for me, and before I learned to shut down the hype and just watch something for what it is, that's when I would get let down. So I think Akira was my big one back in the day, where I'd heard Akira was the greatest piece of art ever made by man, by humanity. Um, so Morph Ball 22/7 is a very significant number, very significant title. That is a particular mathematical number that is relevant to the themes of the show, as it turns out. Um, do I have an opinion on Inspector? I watched episode 1, was really interested in where it was going. Love the pacing of that episode, how they kind of reveal stuff over time, and just how the two main characters talk and how they kind of dance around various issues. I love that. I love what the show didn't get to immediately. Things that you're like, I wonder why she's doing this, and then over time. But I haven't gotten back to Inspector yet. But it's high on the priority list. It's almost pi. 27 is almost pi, and that's part of the key apparently. Is there any manga similar to Bunny Drop? Quite a few. Sweetness and Lightning. Jumps out. Poco's Udon World. Very similar. um, both about single men taking care of a young girl, like preschool age esque girl, roughly. Let's see here. Do I know an anime about a programmer? Well, yeah, uh, there was the isekai from like I think earlier in 2019 about a programmer who gets sent to a like into a fantasy RPG world. That's about a programmer. Dorohedoro is really nuts into 2 episodes. Cool. Um, there was a question up here that I kind of missed. Do 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 do. Is a guy about a businessman? Well, I mean, technically, uh, Slime, right? He was a businessman. Um, oh yeah, we were talking about big letdown anime, and like I said, Akira. I bounced off of when it first came out. I was like, people really are impressed by this, but over time, I've come to understand what Akira is. Um, you're right, JJ. The Saga of Tanya the Evil. Oh, I get that, Jay. So when it comes to an Isekai world with just a suitcase, I mean, it is kind of high school prodigies. It's basically a high school prodigy. I mean, he's not a businessman, but um, they don't get superpowers in the new world. Most of them, they already have superpowers, kind of. But uh, but yeah, I'd totally be up for an Isekai where it's just a businessman who comes to the new world as a businessman. That's it. There's actually a lot of manga about business theory and kind of explaining like economics and stuff like that through manga. So I totally see that where somebody marries isekai and does a thing where a guy tries to um, apply business principles in a fantasy isekai world. That'd be pretty cool. I'm actually surprised we don't have that yet. I got reincarnated as a suitcase. There we go. Well, there's the vending machine. There's an isekai where a guy gets reincarnated as a vending machine. It's close. Exactly. Yeah, Spice and Wolf with Isekai. There we go. That'd actually be kind of interesting. Bring in somebody who is kind of aware of market forces and economics and so forth, who sets up as a merchant in an Isekai world or in a fantasy world, and deals with the fact that you can't just straight up apply economic theory, but you can, you don't have the same complex economies, but you can apply certain aspects of it. That would be really fascinating, actually. Reincarnated as Brent's chair. You want me to sit on you all the time? That's weird. I would personally. Well, I'm not going to go there. Yeah. Well, Jay, all you need to do is raise a couple $1 million, and we'll get your anime series made. Um, yeah, that's the thing. We all have to. You got to learn to disregard the hype. It took me a long time to learn that. I still fall into the trap sometimes. Um, it's one of the reasons you don't hear me screaming and yelling about Star Wars. Because I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, I don't really get excited um, about whether something lives up to my expectations. I don't really have expectations in that way. Yeah. And actually, it's a good example of Akko 12. I am very much looking forward to seeing what that Gundam 0079 remake um, would look like. I would excitedly watch that, but I wouldn't expect it to be like my next favorite anime. It can be whatever. It's weird. Star Wars had a great fan base. It was fine, really, until the prequels came out. And everyone just, everyone freaked out about the prequels, and I think that really started the downward trend. Um, yeah, no, totally, Patrick. I would be fascinated about to watch a 0079 remake, but I also realize, again, it's not made for me. Um, it's going to be its own thing. And that's the thing. You gotta find that balance. Find the balance. Relax. Chill. Keep the excitement, but channel it. Be like water, my friend. Um, yeah. Actually, Jay, that's technically Digimon, isn't it? Right? Like those kids go to the digital world. That's another world. It's interesting. Digimon is an isekai. The more I think about it. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the guy who played gosh, I can't remember names tonight. The guy who played Anakin, like he had to move. Like he moved out to the Midwest and like cut all Hayden Christensen. Like he cut all ties with reality for like years, because how badly he was harassed. Like it's pretty bad. Timbers is a reverse isekai. You're right. The isekai is bleeding over into our world. Technically, so is Lane. Lane's kind of a reverse isekai. That's weird. That's really funny. Huh. I guess Monster Rancher is too, kind of. Huh, never thought about how, yeah, Digimon Tamer is totally. The digital world is bleeding over into the real world. All right, let me see if I can pull up the thing. Where is that? Um, is it there? I don't think so. No, that's not it. I mean, maybe it is. Hold on. Nope. How was I getting? How was I playing the PS1 on here? I mean, obviously emulator, but I can't find the emulator, so we may have to hold off on Lane tonight. Excuse me. Well, let me just skim through here real quick. Talk amongst yourselves. And if I can find it, remember what the heck it was, what the emulator was. Obviously, I have not paid too close attention. Speaking of programming, I came across a really cool thing. Actually, let me just pull this up real quick. Um, if anyone's interested in learning to code or is a coder and likes coding, I came across this week, and it's very interesting. Just waiting for it to finish loading, which doesn't seem to want to work. Where'd you go? There it comes. Hold on. Doo doo. Do I want to do that? Nope. I kind of want to do that, I think. Not ideal. But maybe that'll work. Yeah, I'll give that a try. So if I pull this up, let me just check something. Yep, all right. So let's try. Beep boop. Boop. So this is Sonic Pi, and it is a programming language for music. And we'll see if this plays at all. Actually, let me load a different song. And so basically you code music. So this is A, C, and E in the second octave. And you can just hit play. And you get this very weird. I'm playing this through the speakers back into the microphone, so I don't know how well you can hear this. But it's really interesting. You get to create music, basically. And this is all just doing sort of random notes and tones within certain ranges. And then you can do, and I don't know how well this is going to play. And I'm just playing around with different notes here. Yeah, I want that a lot shorter, actually. How easy could I do that? Let's try 1, 2, 5. 1, 2, 5. Let's try that again. Speed it up. I actually like that a lot better. Yes, you can do. You can compose any kind of music. You can get different chiptune sets and such. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's kind of cool. There we are. So that's Sonic Pi, if you're curious at all. You're right, Recreators is totally a reverse isekai. I had not thought of that. I get a weird feeling that William Gibson is just hard to license. He does not want to license his stuff out. Kind of beyond like Hollywood. Homemade potato chips for Hobby Hopper. That's a great idea. That is totally that's totally comfort food. And by the way, potato chips are really easy to make at home. All you need is like a mandolin, which slices things in even slices. I mean, you can use a knife if you want to, but ideally you'll use a mandolin, which gives you perfectly even slices, and you just need a pot and oil and maybe some salt. You can make stuff. You can make potato chips. You'll get a lot of chips out of one potato. It's actually kind of scary. Not scary, but it's eye-opening how many chips you'll get out of one potato. And you'll realize, my gosh, that bag of chips that I bought that was like $4 was like one potato. It's pretty crazy. Oh yeah, reverse isekais are much better than isekais. Definitely. But Moe's better than all of them. That's cool, Mozone. Gibson retweeted some of your fan art. That's really awesome. So I was trying to find my emulator. Let me just scroll down. Excuse me. Where was that? What was it? That's annoying. So I know I did this before. Does anyone remember what tool I used? Like, did I talk about it? What my my PS1 emulator was at the time? Maybe I uninstalled it. That'd be kind of crazy. Oh, it might actually be. One second. It's probably not that. No. Nope. I thought it might be in the lane directory, but that's just the data. Oh wait. What is that? What is that? Oh no, it's just listening to it. Okay, well, not tonight. Sorry, guys. So I did want to talk about, and it is now past 10, so I can talk about this now. Reverse Moe Isekai. Sounds good to me. Moe goblins come to our world. That's a hentai I've read. I'm kidding. Cool. That's one of the nice things about making your own potato chips is you can really set the spices to whatever you want them to be. All right. So, why is it that every emulator, no matter how carefully installed and maintained, will simply stop working and disappear altogether? That's a great question. I don't know. That is weird. Emulators do have like a half-life. They just kind of devolve. So, yeah. So I want to talk about this story that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. And because, again, this is one of those things that I think is fascinating and that I think is good to know because it helps inform us about laws and so forth and so on. So, there's an article on ANN about imagery of CG imagery of children who are not wearing any clothes. And it's kind of one of those, one of those things. There's a designer who was selling like photo sets of CGI, completely CGI art of underage girls, very much underage girls. And here's the thing. He was convicted in 2016 and appealed. And the interesting thing here is that he was convicted because he based the CGI off of what were once legal photo books. And so he was making CGI of individuals who were recognizable. So you could tell, who that person was when the photograph was taken. And that's what they objected to in a sense. Or in other words, that's what they kind of convicted him on. Because here is the thing. You know how in Japanese adult media, you can't show, certain parts of the anatomy. Here's the thing. Before 1999, any explicit photograph could be published uncensored if the person had no hair down there, right? And so people would photograph individuals who didn't have any, and that was legal because it fell under the thing. And again, these were just photographs, and there was, this was not, it would be, the subject of the photograph would just be, in a studio, sitting around doing whatever. There were certainly questionable topics, but what I find so interesting is the fact that they were basically saying, we are prosecuting you because you are doing CGI of recognizable individuals, not because, of the content per se. Now, they also said basically, and this was kind of the big thing of the decision, is they said that basically CP is a depiction of what can visually be recognized as a child's body. Because this is based on an actual person's photograph and depicts a child, it is CP, right? So that's what I find so interesting about this story, is that technically, right, you can make CGI of any age as long as it does not represent an actual person. And until 1999, that was legal for photographing that kind of thing. Again, as long as there was no actual like adult things going on in the photograph. Yeah. So that's why I found this so fascinating, as you can imagine. So this guy was arrested in 2013 for distributing this collection based on scans of these photo books from the 80s and early 90s. And he had edited them. So here's the thing. He had been arrested in 2013 for that, and he had changed hairstyles and poses and things and so forth, so it didn't look exactly the same. So he wasn't just copying it. And this was the first arrest in Japan for realistic CG imagery under Japan's porn laws, basically. And so that's the interesting thing is you get the line was that it's based on real people, and it's also important because Japan has this long, we'll circle back. It'll be okay. Japan has a long history of the idea that if it's not real, it's not real, right? And we're okay with all sorts of very disturbing things happening to non-real people. But as soon as you involve somebody who is recognizable, and that's the thing is exactly JJ. Different cultures have different standards for what is okay, and it's important, looking at and understanding that when people talk to you about that and say that's ridiculous, like, well, actually that's their culture, like that is what they have decided is okay, and you can talk about that, and to be clear, a law is not culture. So something may be legal, but still not considered culturally acceptable. So this is not a statement about Japanese culture saying that Japanese culture is this. It is saying this is an aspect of Japanese culture. How does the U.S. law work? How does U.S. law work there? U.S. law doesn't work in Japan. If you mean U.S., how does U.S. law apply to this? As far as I know, according to the U.S. Code, possession of any depiction of an underage character engaging in adult activity is illegal. Photograph, art, whatever, period. But I don't know about just a drawing of an underage character without clothes on. I'm honestly not sure about that, because technically, I believe I mean, obviously, if you're a parent and you take a photo of your kid in the bath, like that's fine. From what I've heard, so I'm speaking very much out of some ignorance here. Typically, the question is basically one of so when I've run across these stories, it's usually been basically, if you are caught with a library of that kind of imagery, the question is, what have you been involved with, right? If that's the only thing you have, that's one thing. If you are also involved in possession and distribution of other kinds of imagery, that will very much change how the police will look at that. But if you take a again, a photo of your kid when they get out of the bath, like that's whatever. But I'm certainly not a lawyer. I'm certainly cannot speak to exact U.S. law on these things. It's certainly not my area of expertise. I write code and make web pages happen. I'm going to add one other thing to this, which I think does kind of bring things full circle. What's also interesting about this whole topic is that Japan for a long time did not have laws against CP because they had laws against obscenity. And that covered that. But there was mounting pressure amongst international groups because they said, oh, Japan doesn't have laws against this, so it must be legal and must be everywhere, and how terrible. And Japan has this, terrible legal framework for protection of children. And it's and they were like, well, we prosecute this all the time. Like we bring people for this all the time. It's just covered under obscenity. But because there was so much international pressure for folks who simply counted the number of laws that literally called it out, that Japan had to change its laws to explicitly call it out, and then dust them. So, and of course, as soon as that happened, you need definitions, you need specificity, and it got a little more complicated. And you get questions like this of what crosses the line. So more for the I don't know that there is a difference between possession and consumption. If you possess it, you're presumably consuming it. In other words, I'm not understanding the difference there. Do you mean like if you're streaming it versus you have a copy? I guess you mean. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. And this is also one of the difficult things, is that there's no interesting. There's essentially no way of studying this, right? You can't sit down with people involved in this and ask them questions. So we don't know a lot of these correlations. We don't know what causes what and what's involved. So it's complicated, right? This is stuff where we really don't know the psychology behind it. Consuming, you're also possessing it. You're not necessarily possessing what you consume. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how they would distinguish those things. I know certainly distribution is different than possession. Those are treated very differently. If you possess, that's a different thing than. Obviously they're different things, but one is a much higher category of problem than the other, right? But the good news is that if you chart, societal concern of this over time, it is on a very strong upward trend. This is the kind of thing that global society has kind of ignored for a long time, or assumed didn't exist, or assumed was a very, very tiny thing that could be kind of safely ignored because it almost never happened. But now folks are like really paying attention to it and really trying to clean up this kind of stuff, which is why we have stories like this, because societies are trying to decide what are the limits, what's the right and the wrong thing, where do we draw the line. So it's why I'm actually not depressed when I read these things, because I'm glad to see courts come out and say, no, this is not acceptable, and this is. So who knows? Hi. All right. I also want to talk about anime history, actually, because we do have some anime history elements today, in this week. There we go. Let me do that real quick for y'all. Hello and welcome to This Week in Anime History. We have a couple of different things that happened this week in anime history. January 25th, 1938 saw the birth of Leiji Matsumoto, the legendary anime and manga creator behind things like Space Battleship Yamato, aka Star Blazers, Space Pirate Captain Harlock, Queen Emeraldus, Galaxy Express 39s, all sorts of really interesting things, and all of which are technically part of the same universe, kind of, sort of. Long-standing, decades-long influence in both the manga and the anime scene, and really, really cool. Somebody who has just been involved in anime for a very, very long time. Matsumoto is just an absolute legend in anime and manga, and if you're interested in big space opera stuff, he's very much your guy. Also, this week saw the end of the original Mobile Suit Gundam anime series in Japan back in January 26th, 1980. The anime did not end when it was supposed to. This was supposed to be a 50 episode anime series, and it ended in episode 43 because it was not doing too well in the ratings, and so its backers insisted that it end early, which turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise because the writers had to kind of rush to finish up the ending and kind of condensed their story down, and the ending got a lot more taut, I think, than it otherwise would have been. It kind of drives from plot point to plot point. And actually, interest had been building slowly over the course of the run, and so it ended strong, and really helped a lot of the fandom at the time to really appreciate the show, and I think helped general love of the show, and definitely helped with the eventual interest in the movies, and then the sequel, and the other sequel, and then the sequel after that, and the fact that Gundam is now this absolutely ridiculously massive thing. So endings are sometimes beginnings. Also, this week saw the ending of the original Dragon Ball Z anime series in 1996. Dragon Ball Z being worth mentioning because it was a very odd anime series. It was this long-form shonen series that was very fight-heavy, not a lot of plot really in Dragon Ball Z, but it, in the traditional sense, of, beyond the fights in terms of plot, and a really, really big deal. And it really changed the direction of shonen in general. It really introduced the shonen formula of a sort of motley crew of teenagers and young adults all in this fantasy sci-fi universe fighting bad guys week after week, especially with the tournament arc. And you really see the classic big shonen pattern established in Dragon Ball Z. And certainly hugely popular, and popular enough to then spawn many imitators and multiple sequels and, returns to Dragon Ball. So something that even back in 1996, when the original one ended, and I'm sure everyone was like, oh, it's the end of Dragon Ball. Nope, plenty more Dragon Ball to come after that. So that is the major anime news or anime history items of the week. Hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. Boink. No, I said boink. I said boink. There. Sha. Sha. Stars Align got pulled. Oh, sorry to hear that. Always sad to see a series end early. Star Blazer was your jam? Nice. Definitely a classic. Definitely a classic. All right. Any last minute questions before we move on to Nadia? Because we have a couple more episodes of that. Quite a few more episodes of that, actually. But we're deep in now. For those of you who have not been joining us, you can certainly jump in. Nadia is a very easy anime to jump in the middle of. There's obviously backstory and plot, but it's not that big of a deal. Let me get a bit more tea here. I managed to not need the whiskey. Imagine that. In case you're wondering, Evan is still busy with other stuff, but he's going to try to make it back here every so often. Good seeing him last week. Always good having him around. Remember that one-shot OVA from the author of Bleach? Nothing confirmed, though. Oh. Wouldn't be surprised. It's time for him to come back. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could use some whiskey, but I don't need it. Oh, I forgot to do my routine. Oh, well. Sorry. I have a list of things to do, like right behind the camera and all that kind of stuff. And there's a thing I meant to do at dinner time, and I completely forgot. Oopsie. Alrighty. Interesting, Fisher. I wonder if maybe there were just too many concerns over, too many complaints over Stars Align. Who knows? Who knows? All right, then I think that will do it for us for tonight. As always, some great conversation. Love having you all around. Very cool. So, if anyone's interested, again, this is a very reasonable thing to jump in onto if you want to. If you head to that link I just dropped in there, you can join us for some Nadia and the Secret of Blue Water. And we're going to get into it. So thank you all very much. Hope you have a great week. I will see you next week. I do plan to stream from Star City next week. So we will have a, we'll have a stream from a hotel room. See how that goes. Good seeing y'all. Have a good one. Until next time, watch more anime.